Next up, though, we have Creative Assembly to talk about how to make games straight from your home. Let's watch.
Welcome to our next awesome talk from the Intergames Careers Festival. I'm Katie and I work at Intergames, and I'm super excited to present a jam-packed hour called How to Make Games at Home with the fantastic Creative Assembly. Joining us today, we have some amazing experts in game design and sound design. But firstly, I'd love to introduce the lovely Joanna Green, who's the Corporate Social Responsibility Lead. Hey, Joanna. And Joanna's going to be giving us some insight into what roles there are in the games industry and how you can get there if you're kind of an interested young person. So thank you so much, Joanna. Take it away.
Brilliant. Hi, everybody. As Katie says, my name's Joanna. I just thought I'd start today just so that you know, if anybody hasn't actually heard who Creative Assembly is, just to introduce ourselves as well. So, as Katie says, my name's Joanna. I'm the Corporate Social Responsibility Lead at Creative Assembly. I sit within the recruitment team, but I actually work on our legacy project, which is our education outreach programme. I organise all the schools outreach and what we do within that, and also work with other industry bodies and partners as part of our education provision, whilst looking at sort of like the work that we do with our charity of the year as well. My colleague works with over 16s and I work with under 16s. So that's why I'm here today to talk to all of you. So who we are, we're actually Creative Assembly. So we're founded in 1987. And so with a development history of over 35 years now, we're one of the largest and longest games studios in the UK. We were purchased by Sega in 2005, and we're now home to over 800 world-class professionals, both here in the UK and in Bulgaria. We're best known for our long-running Total War series that has sold over 20 million copies. So we released Total War Warhammer 3 this year, and we also released Alien Isolation, Halo Wars 2, and we're now in full development for our brand new FPS IP as well. As I just mentioned earlier, just a little mention on our legacy project. It's been awarded best in the industry for education for the last 2 years, and this year we also won Corporate Responsibility Award. You can see a few different awards on that screen as well. So just to kind of like give a bit of an overview of the careers in the games industry, just wanted to start sort of just to go into them a little bit more. So we have the animation team who are responsible for animating the characters and other elements of the in-game environment. We also have our art team who create 2D concepts or 3D models for characters, creatures and environments. Audio, which both compose music but also create sound effects and character voices for inside the game. Design, which is the architects of the gameplay experience, and so it defines the feel of the game, narrative, and oversees creative development from concept through to release and beyond. Our production team organises the creation of the game, as well as oversees the game's development, and is responsible for project management and also sort of the business and financial perspective. Programming is responsible for sort of like the writing of the code and bringing the game to life, and sort of like the features or the service, and making a playable and usable build as well, really important. And quality assurance is sort of the game testers and as well, and that ensures that the product quality data such as bugs, errors, test output, results, and other feedback are found and communicated throughout the whole of the development as well. They're just sort of like the ones throughout the actual development team, but we also have other roles within the industry as well, which can be business planning, DevOps, human resources, IT, marketing, operations, and web development. Just to kind of give an idea for you at home, I just sort of thought as we're sort of like still looking at school age sort of thing, I thought if I just kind of run through those again, but just kind of give an idea of what jobs, there we go. What kind of jobs, which subjects at school you'll be able to kind of relate a little bit to with those. So we have, with animation, we've got sort of art, computing and drama. With the art team, we've got art, design, textiles. With audio, there's two sides of that. So that you've got music, but also like music technology, physics and maths. I'll let Rob explain that a little bit later. And with the next one, we've got business and maths. With the design, we've got computing, English, humanities, media. There's lots more that can be in there as well. With the DevSops, it's computing and ICT. And with human resources, math, psychology, IT, English. With IT, we've got ICT and computing. With PR and marketing, business, English and graphics. With operations, there's quite a few, isn't there? I'm going through. Sort of maths, English, ICT and computing. Production, business studies, ICT, English. Programming, computing, maths and physics. Quality insurance, computing, ICT and English. And then finally, web development, ICT, computing, maths and art. These are not exhaustive. This is just a list sort of to kind of get you to start thinking, if you've got children at home, sort of what subjects might they enjoy at school, what games do they like doing, maybe where might they fit within the industry. There's all sorts of different opportunities. You don't have to be good at one thing to be able to do this. And also the other thing that we would like to talk a lot more about today are obviously the soft skills. They're just as important. So we've got things like teamwork, projects, giving feedback by peers, concept into digital art, portfolio creation, sort of start attending industry talks, assemblies and panels. You're already here today, so we're already one step on that journey anyway. Like different apps, I've just put stop animation apps as one sort of suggestion. Analysing a game that they're interested in and picking out the different elements, whether it's the audio or the marketing, and also virtual work experience. There's quite a lot of different opportunities with that around now. It's never too early to start, just because it sort of like seems a long way off, because there are so many different roles within the industry. I think it's really important for you to be able to sort of like research them and have a little look around and get them sort of like thinking on that journey now, and have a bit of fun while you're doing it as well. Just to give an extra little bit of information where you can find stuff from Create Assembly. We've got a website, we've got a YouTube channel, we've got Twitter and our ArtStation as well. So there's lots of different places that you can go. And then obviously the Amazing Intergames as well have a lot of different resources that you can look at. They're two places for you to get started. So I hope that's useful information, and I'm going to pass back to Katie now. Thank you very much.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much, Joanna. That was brilliant. It's so great to sort of clearly see how school subjects can lead to careers in games. I wish I'd had this kind of knowledge when I was in school. And I really hope that everybody at home was taking some awesome notes. There was also some really great starting sort of proactive things to think about doing there, which is fantastic, because the next up, we've got the lovely Yasmin Curren, who's a technical designer at Creative Assembly. Hey, Yasmin.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good, thank
Yasmin's going to be taking us through sort of how you can start designing games at home. So we'd love for you to take it away if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'd love to. So I'm just going to first explain a little bit more about what a game designer is, because there can be some confusion around it. It sounds like it's something to do with art, but it's really not. So I thought I'd just talk about that for a little bit more. So game designers basically are creative problem solvers, and we enjoy slotting pieces of a puzzle together to form a wider creative vision. We work with multiple different disciplines, and disciplines are like different parts of the team in making a game. And we work with them towards a creative vision. So we think about multiple areas within a video game's development and how they can be used to enhance a creative goal and make for a fun and cohesive player experience. So these are just some of the types of people we work with: the programmers, the animators, artists, VFX, and sound. So designers are responsible for the game's storylines and plots, user interfaces, in-game objectives, map scenarios, degree of difficulty, character development, and basically anything that makes up a game is what we have to nail and think about. There's a lot. So because of that, there are many different types of game designers, and a lot of us do specialize. So you might hear terms like level designer, which specialize in environment layout, look and feel, system designers who focus on certain mechanics such as player movement, and technical designers, which is my role. And we have a more analytical approach to designs with pipeline and performance in mind. And we're kind of expected to have a broader understanding of the game engine, so the more techie stuff. And of course, all of these roles are part of game design, and every game studio differs depending on the genre of the game, the size of the game. And so the exact responsibilities of game designers does change from studio to studio. But hopefully that gives you a nice big understanding of how broad game design is. So I want to take you through how you can make a game of yourselves, or design a game of yourselves at home. And first of all, you need to think about game pillars. It's something that we use a lot in the games industry, the term game pillars, because these set the foundations for the entire game and will make sure that you keep grounded when you actually go through developing your game. All ideas, concepts, and design choices should be made with these design pillars in mind. And you should have at least 3 or 4 short and concise core statements about what your game is to establish your goals. So when you create your game pillars and you think about what type of game you want to make, maybe ask yourself questions such as, the genre will be something, and that's one pillar. You keep to what that genre is. Our players will feel a certain type of way than when they play the game. Our unique selling point, which is basically what is unique to your game that all other games don't have. Why are people going to want to play your game? So what will that unique selling point be? And the environment will show, what kind of world do you want to create? What ambience and atmosphere should your game kind of show and have? And those are kind of good starting points to think about what your game pillars will be. So there are some game design principles. There's actually a whole bunch of game design principles out there. Hence why I've shown you a little treasure chest here, because it's kind of never ending. And some principles are needed more than others depending on what type of game you're making. Hence why it's really important to understand what your game pillars are first. But I will take you through some basic game design principles that most games do need. So the first one is focus. Most people play a game because they want to win. And winning doesn't always have to be in a competitive sense. It can also be that they've reached the end of a really nice conclusive narrative or something. So they've managed to beat the game per se. So yeah, you want to make sure that the player always has a really clear goal and that your game satisfies this goal in some way, even if it's a really unexpected way. Pokemon is a really good example of this. It's got a very clear goal, clear focus that you want to be the best Pokemon trainer that there is. And you kind of have a secondary goal, which is to catch them all. But the player knows, and anyone who's seen Pokemon knows exactly what they need to do in these games, which is great. The second is mechanics. And a lot of game designers actually will start with a core mechanic. You don't have to start this way, but it is a really good way of doing so. So a mechanic is an experiential building block of player interactivity. And it can be like a core moment-to-moment activity, which players do something and it's repeated over and over again throughout the game. So it has to be very enjoyable and, because it's going to happen a lot. So games like Super Meat Boy and The Binding of Isaac, which is designed by Edmund Macmillan, usually he starts his games around a mechanic, and then he builds like a narrative and a whole world just from that one mechanic. So Super Meat Boy is a little sticky boy that sticks to surfaces when he's doing level platforming. And then if you fail a level, you restart from the start, but you actually see your previous attempts, so you can see where you went wrong. That's mechanics. Like, that is the core mechanic of that game. And then from that, Edmund just created a whole world and story, which is cool. There's rules. So rules are in pretty much every game, and they provide clear constraints for players. Rules can be as simple as the player input. So WASD to move is usually on the keyboard, things like that. And some rules are inherent within a genre of a game. So if you're going to play a turn-based strategy game, such as Total War, then the players will be limited to a certain number of moves before their turn is up. So that's always a rule that will be inherent in that genre. There's pacing as well. Pacing allows for excitement because players always want to be excited, but sometimes they don't want it all the time. They'll get overwhelmed. So you need to allow some downtime for the player. And also within pacing, there is a technique, I guess it could be a design principle of its own, called discovery. And it ties in with pacing really well because it gives your player something to look forward to, even in those down times. And there's a level design term called weenies, which is quite funny to say, where basically you have large points of interest in the level. So for instance, in Zelda Breath of the Wild, you can see a volcano and a castle, and that's like your main point of interest. It's the first shot that you see of the open world environment, and you instantly know, I want to go and explore these environments. They look amazing, and it keeps players intrigued about what's to come next. There's also player agency. And player agency is basically when you allow players to impact the game, or at least allow players the illusion that they're impacting the game, because sometimes they're technically not, but just by giving them choices, it really helps with their immersion in the game. If you allow true player agency, then this actually does allow for replayability, and it creates emergent gameplay, which is when game mechanics change due to player actions, making it really feel like a unique game just for that player. Yeah, it's really good. And Witcher 3 is a great example of this. There are many side quests that will get blocked off if a player chooses a certain action. You can create different types of relationships with characters in that game. And I really feel like you can mold the main character, Geralt, to kind of who you want to be as a person. So yeah, great player agency game. And finally, I'll just talk about game feel, which is the hardest design principle to explain. It's kind of when everything just quote unquote feels right. You can't really explain it. It's just the theme is cohesive, the mechanics are intuitive, so the player just understands what to do. The visuals and audio work well together, and Nintendo always nails this, like Mario games, for instance. I bet that you already have some audio in your head of what it would sound like when Mario picks up one of those coins behind him. Those games are just, yeah, very good game feel. So with this all in mind, how could you start to design a game from home? And actually it could all just start with a paper prototype, just with some paper and some pencils. Paper prototypes are really good because you don't have to waste too much time. You don't have to be too precious about it. And usually you have everything you need right in front of you. So it's a really good way to understand and test rules and mechanics that you might have come up for what your game is. For instance, card games. It's really good to, you could use existing cards and board games to make your own prototype more robust, and just to experiment with the rules and mechanics that you want to do in your game. You can also test level pacing and rules. So this actually is a first prototype of like a really old Mario game when it was side-scrolling, 2D puzzle platformer. So they would just draw out their levels by hand. And I think this is a really, really cool idea, because they've done it on lined paper as well. So actually they can use that for the rules, because just by looking at this, I can see the rules are that Mario probably can only jump about 2 or 3 lines high. So that's a rule. And then designers have to think about, okay, where are we going to put some downtime in the levels? Where are we going to make it exciting with loads of NPCs? Where are we going to put some puzzles in there? So perhaps there's a ledge that's too high for Mario to jump to, so they need a turtle or something for him to bounce off of. That's a puzzle. So yeah, really, really easy way to get the creative juices flowing. This is also a paper prototype of Among Us, which was a really popular game a couple of years ago, I think. But yeah, they had a map, and they literally just drew out the map, and they had gameplay tasks, and they had to make sure that these gameplay tasks were evenly spread out around the map. So this was a very quick and easy way of just visualizing that and coming up with loads of different ideas of where all the gameplay events will be, so that they're not confined into one section, and the imposter could be allowed to roam around the map and take people out without other people noticing. And if you're not a drawer and you really don't want to draw things down, you can actually just write and test out a narrative. This is actually using something called Twine. But you can do this on paper, just with loads of sticky notes if you want to, or just on an A4 piece of paper. It's a really good way of writing a branching narrative flow. So maybe it looks a bit intimidating there on the screen for you, but you just start with the beginning of what your gameplay is going to be like, and then perhaps there'll be like branching dialogue options or different side quests and game beats, and they'll all branch off into different directions. This can be good for planning narrative beats in your game, and also for you to locate where you can allow for player agency, which is what I spoke about before, and where you can give players some choices and decisions to be made. And finally, paper prototypes can also be used to test user experience. So not just for the game itself, but also for things such as the menu screen. How are players going to click through to certain things? Like, I mean, this is a mobile phone game, so they're using a tap, but you can also use click if it's on a computer. You can mock up how the HUD might look, and the HUD is the heads-up display that's over the top of the video game that might have your inventory and things like that. You can also mock up how each scene will transition in and out of view. Yeah, it's really good for mocking up title menus and settings and things like that. And there you go. That's all the uses of paper prototyping. And I think it's probably enough information for you to just grab a pen and paper and get designing.
Awesome. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Yasmin. That was amazing. Thank you. I feel like I learned so much just now, and I'm so excited to go away and try some of this out myself. So that's really cool. Thank you. It really shows that like anybody can be a game designer as well. And so I hope that everybody at home feels really equipped to start coming up with their first game ideas. That was incredible. Thank you, Yasmin. However, if you are a person who happens to be interested in audio and music, you might be interested in this next talk. Up now, we've got Rob Kitt, who's a senior sound designer at Creative Assembly. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Katie, how are you?
Hey. Yeah, great, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, great.
Good. So Rob has so much amazing experience, and right now he's going to walk us through how to create sound effects for games at home, which I'm super excited for as well. So take it away, Rob. Thank you so much.
Great, thanks, Katie. So yeah, I've got about 20 minutes, I think, to quickly rattle through a little bit of an overview of audio, and then hopefully give you some ideas of some things that you could do at home. I was really fortunate to do something over the pandemic with Into Games, where I got to make a video that could show off just how much you can do at home with things that are readily available. So we'll probably spend most of the time looking at that, and then hopefully that'll leave you inspired. So first off, I'm hugely passionate about my job. I adore coming into work. I get the opportunity to be a problem solver. I get the opportunity to write code and script, but then I get the opportunity to be something of an artist or a craftsperson and get to be creative. So I think that's the thing that always makes me passionate about my work, is it's audio sits at the interface between technology and creativity, and so you get, in my mind, the best of both worlds. So for you guys, for parents and for for people at school, I'll confess I didn't do so well at school, so there's hope for you all. It's things like physics and maths will help you with the engineering side of things. So if you're technically minded, you're going to need to understand the nature of audio, the nature of sound, how it reflects around a room, how to use microphones. So that's the physics side of things. The math side of things comes in with dealing with decibel levels. And then anything else you can do to top that up with, I'm a big believer in that creativity is a whole thing. So if you can get into the mindset of being creative daily, and it doesn't have to be audio or music, it could be writing, it could be painting, it could be dance, it could be theatre. The act of creating and failing and trying again and becoming better at it the next time will stand you in good stead for a career in audio, because I try and fail a lot in any given week, and it's just part of the process, and get comfortable with it. So quickly have a run through some things you could do at home to get you started in audio and to maybe ignite that flame of really being passionate about sound. So we can start with recording sounds, and there's lots of things that are available straight off the shelf that you could install maybe onto a laptop or onto a mobile phone for your child to use. So I've got my trusty mobile phone here. On there is BandLab, and BandLab is a free app, and it just turns your mobile phone microphone into a recording device. You can punch record and it will generate sound files for you, which you can eventually bring off onto a laptop. So it's all about being creative, and imagination is one of the biggest keys with recording. So we're going to try to, before we even think about making a sound that would go into our game, we're going to want to go off and find some props or a place to go and record some sounds that we can then bring back into our audio software. We'll then manipulate those sounds to then hopefully fit what needs to go into the game. So for instance, we've got a dragon and it's battling a huge Gundam on some desert plains. Imagine that in your head. We're going to have a good think about, well, what could we make those sounds? We can't go out and record a dragon, they don't exist, and Gundams don't exist either. So like, how are we going to do this? So hopefully this illustrates the point. Here's my Blue Peter moment. So we've got an umbrella, and we can make dragon flaps, wings. Get a bigger umbrella if you need a bigger dragon. We're going to need to make some punches, and those punches are going to need to whoosh. So we can get some bamboo and make some nice whooshes. And then we've got our pilot, our Gundam pilot's got like an astronaut type cloth jacket on. We need to make the sound of that. We can make walking sounds, we can make whoosh sounds for punches. So hopefully that illustrates the point. There's household objects everywhere. You can, if you keep your ears open, there's a wealth of sounds available to you right there in your house that you can grab your mobile phone and capture. There's stuff you can do outside as well. There's location recording, so we can go out and record the sound of nature, trees, streams, birds, and start building a sound library that we can then use to make our games. So once we've collected all that stuff up, we're going to want to make like a little mini sound library out of all of that stuff to use in our projects. And the best, I think for me, the moment it really clicked that I loved what I do, I was given a project at university, and it was to make a 3-minute clip. We were given a 3-minute video, I think it was from Final Fantasy, and then they said, record some sounds and put the sounds against the video. And it was the moment at which I synced up some footsteps to what the character was doing on the screen, and it was there, and the audio visual sync was there, and that was it. It was like they were walking, the sound was there. I really remember that moment clearly. So I would recommend that as one of the best projects you could probably do, is maybe select an inspiring piece of film or a game trailer, or something that maybe your child's really into, and then mute the sound off, and maybe spend the next few weeks recording sounds for it, and then bringing them into a piece of audio software, and try building up layers of sounds to replace all of the audio that should have been on the video. It's really rewarding, really creative, and I think that distills the magic. So resources. So I think one of the wonderful things about audio in recent years, I think certainly from even the time when I was a student, is there's far less gatekeepers now, and far less of a barrier to entry in terms of cost. So you can start off with, there's a piece of software I'll show you shortly called Reaper. That's free to download, and you've got a short trial with it, and you can grab that and use that. That's only $60 for a license. You used to pay hundreds and hundreds of pounds for a license for Pro Tools, for instance. Microphones become a lot cheaper. You can now buy USB microphones, or a very cheap, good quality microphone that you would be able to record orchestras with. So I think that's a really good progressive step forward, is that this stuff is becoming more accessible. And I think younger people today, children are far more tech savvy than I think I was at their age. So being digital natives, I would hope they are able to pick up the technology and use it a lot quicker than I suppose I was able to. So we've got all of our sounds, and we've put them on our hard drive ready to use. What we're going to do is we're going to bring all of these in now into our piece of audio software. So I'm going to use Reaper for this, and this is something you can grab at home and download and install. Quickly share my screen. Okay, so hopefully you should be able to see that, and it looks quite complicated. It's not really. Designing sound is a lot like cooking, and we want a little bit of everything so that the eventual dish comes out and it sounds beautiful. So in my session here, I've got at the very top, we've got our video. So this was something that Total War gave me. It was a big magic explosion. And we see under here, each one of these little orange lines here is one set of tracks that make up a sound. As you can see here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different layers of sound that have all been put together to make something new and to make it fit the video. So there was this huge magic explosion. I've used bits of bamboo whoosh, bits of cardboard box hits, a little bit of polystyrene that's being rubbed together. I took some ringing glass sounds and I've put them all together into those set of tracks, and it's made a new sound and something that fits the theme, the fantasy theme of Total War, and hopefully sounds spectacular and makes the player feel a really strong sense of emotion or satisfaction. They've just caused this thing to happen in the game. So once you've got all your sound files in and you've laid them all up, you can get into doing some processing here. So each one of these, poor example, here we go. So on this polystyrene here, I've done a little bit of equalization, a little bit of compression, a little bit of modulation with this crazy plugin. Ultimately, it's just pushing through manipulating the sounds in different ways to make them new and interesting, and maybe a lot more different from the original sound that you initially put into your session. So that's the audio side of things, and hopefully that's something that you could that is inspiring, and you feels like that could be within reach to be able to give that a go at home. The other side of the job, let me just stop sharing my screen. So the other side of the job is the more technical aspect of things, and I'm very fortunate to be involved in the recruiting side of things for our audio team. And I think some of the most impressive candidates that we see are people that have managed to not only produce an incredible audio portfolio, a lot like the project that I've just mentioned there. They've taken a video and they've redesigned all the sound for it, and it sounds incredible, and you know, it's moving and it is impactful and powerful. But also where they've done projects that include maybe Unreal Engine or another game engine, and they successfully be able to script something and produce it doesn't have to be a perfect game. You know, we aren't recruiting designers, but it shows that they understand like how a game engine works and how the audio system integrates into the game engine, and that's a real requirement. It certainly puts a candidate ahead of their peers in terms of recruitment. So something that you could potentially look at maybe for like slightly older children is to have a look at Audio Kinetics Wise. That is the industry standard software. Again, free download. There's a ton of supporting documentation as well. There's a really good tutorial course that you can work through, maybe work through it together. It's a really cool piece of software. You can even outside of a game engine, you can make really cool generative soundscapes. Again, taking all those lovely recordings you've grabbed, bring them into Wise. See if you can make a car engine that reacts to a parameter. See if you could make an ambience that reacts to time of day. There's all these like tasks or things that are standard that we put into most games that you could try out scripting those within Wise itself, completely away from a game engine. And then ultimately, you know, you can find small games. So Audio Kinetic on their website have a game that's ready to go with the integration already set up, and you can begin replacing sounds and mixing it and trying to change the way that things are implemented. So that could be a really cool thing to explore, maybe with slightly older children. And again, I think that is also produces a sense of wonder in me. I came from a more production sound, which is working on set for film, short films. I did a lot of corporate kind of work, and then coming into games, I thought it was magic, the fact that you could connect Wise to a game and you could mix the game in real time, and you could build these systems that reacted to what the game was doing at any given moment. So hopefully that's covered enough that would spark some imaginations and make you want to go and pick up a microphone. I have a brilliant time doing my job, and I hope that there's some people out there that would find sound as interesting as I do. And yeah, get out there, get those microphones out and start recording, because that's the best place to start.
Rob, that was amazing. Thank you so much. I feel like audio is such a really creative world, and you never know what you're going to get, like a huge mech or something like that. It's brilliant. Thank you. Once again, thank you so much to everybody from Creative Assembly for being here today. I would love to bring everybody back on, because I've just got some burning questions that I can't not ask now. So thank you. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey.
Thank you for being here. Hello again, Rob. I've just got I've just been making notes. I've got loads of tabs open now of things that I've heard today. So I just would love to spend, however much time we've got left to ask a few questions, if that's all right. I'll pass one out. This could be maybe more focused at Yasmin or Rob, but Joanna, please feel free to step in if you've got some insight here. But I was just wondering, what are some entry-level tools? Rob just mentioned Audio Kinetics and Reaper and stuff, but are there any other entry-level tools for anybody wanting to make games at home that you'd recommend to get started in either game design or sound design? anything that anybody can pick up for free or for very cheap.
I would say, especially for younger people, like Scratch is amazing. It's like an open source, visual tool where you can create games and stuff, and you can code using blocks. So it's very intuitive. It's very visual, and it's really addictive to see how each block kind of slots into one another, and then you get to see it's like this little Scratch cat. You get to see it do things that you basically code it to do. So yeah, Scratch is really good for those who want to start like programming, but obviously don't want to jump into the deep end.
Of course. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Are there any others that we haven't mentioned? I feel like you mentioned Twine as well, Yasmin, which was fantastic. Not just for like narrative, but also for like game design is really cool how you can sort of loop things back around and change things up. That was an awesome one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Twine's really good for that.
No worries. Rob mentioned a bunch as well, so we can leave it at that if that's okay. But thank you so much. That's awesome. And then I was thinking, if I was this is for anybody who wants to step in, but if I was sort of a young person who just developed their first tiny game at home or made their own audio effects or music, is there any tips that you give me on how to assemble my first ever portfolio? I'll pass that to anyone. Joanna, maybe.
I can start, and then I'm sure other people might have something else they can say. But I think just putting it all in one place is a good start. You can use anything, especially for sort of like any of the portfolios. You can really use anything, even if it's sort of like Word or PowerPoint or something like that. You can grab screenshots, you can put different things like that all into one place. And then I think the main thing about it is annotating your journey. So when you're doing your portfolio, put in everything, because you're just starting out. Then once you've actually got some things together, then you can take out the bits that you don't think are so good, and you can change them, and you can like iterate kind of thing. But it's about explaining your journey as you go along. So you don't just go, oh, here's my beautiful, wonderful piece of work that I made right at the end. Start with the snapshots as you're going. So go, oh, at this point I made this, and then I realized that actually the hair was too crazy to be able to actually do anything with, and I wasn't going to be able to animate it or do something like that. So actually I ended up shaving it all off, and this is what I ended up with, something like that. I don't know, just hair was what sprang to mind at that particular moment, clearly. But whatever it is, you can just kind of say, and this was my thought process, and the reason why I did that was because of this reason. And then you're going through, and then you're saying, and I hit this problem, and actually the way I overcame this problem was by doing this. I worked with this person on doing this bit, I worked with this person on doing that bit. Make sure that you credit whoever did the parts if you didn't do it all yourself as well. And then just putting that down all in one place. It doesn't have to be a big sort of fancy piece of software to be able to do that. Obviously there are different things that you can use, but you can just get it out straight away.
Awesome. That's amazing. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Joanna. Did anybody else have anything to add there, or Joanna just did a fantastic job of that?
I would say one thing for me, Katie, is that it's some of it is about learning to take feedback, and Joanna touched on it on one of her opening slides. I've had different people over the people that come to me and say, hey, would you mind looking at my portfolio? Absolutely, not a problem, love to. And there's definitely two camps. There's those that like genuinely take on board the feedback and make really big steps towards improving what they're doing, and then those that you never hear from again. So it's good to get into that mentality of I'm not going to get it right the first time, and to continue to work on it and work in small chunks as well. That's another thing. I've seen some really successful portfolios where they've put together a series of small pieces that then they can bring into one whole, rather than trying to make this huge mountain for themselves that then tends to just like peter out at the end because they got tired or rushed it at the end. So yeah, it made audio wise anyway, like break up your portfolio into a series of things that you can eventually will bring together at the end.
Awesome. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah, I think game design, it can be quite difficult because usually you're working on like a very intricate aspect of something. But yeah, I would just say to anyone who's a game designer, don't be afraid to share like a whole game that you helped to work on, because you don't only have to share things that you only worked on. I think it's really good if you can share like a game that you worked on and then say the specific parts that you helped with, and then how you worked with the people around you, because that is the main part of game design, is you're working with people all the time. So it's not so much I did this and I'm great at this. It's kind of, we want to know, how did you work with the other people around you to make sure that everything was cohesive and worked great. And then Joanna touched on it again. Talk about how like the problems that you had and then how you overcame those, because game design, we want to see how you face problems and how you actually overcome those. And then so in a portfolio, obviously it's quite difficult to like put a whole game on a hard drive or something. So you can put it up on itch.io. That's what I did anyway. It's a really good free place just to host a game if you need it to be somewhere for someone to look at it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think that's really important to kind of let bits of your sort of professional personality kind of shine through your portfolio, and how you're able to work with others and overcome problems as well. So that's brilliant. Thank you so much. Kind of leading on from that, I was wondering, it's kind of a similar question. I was wondering if you guys knew what are some great skills to kind of cultivate early on to work in games, and especially if we're talking about kids who are in secondary school. Joanna touched on they learn, they can go into different subjects and stuff like that, but like kind of skills or professional skills, what are some really good ones to cultivate early on? I'll go to go on. Sorry.
I would 100%. I would say soft skills that Joanna spoke of. The ability to work in a team and to work hard, turn up on time, be a good person, be kind to your co-workers, goes a long way. I have certainly been in interviews against better sound designers, I think, for some jobs that I've had, but I think I ended up being a more valuable employee because of the other soft skills that I bring to the workplace. And so that stuff cannot be underestimated, and I think it goes for any industry, let alone the game industry, but it will get them a long way towards working well in a team, and then you become worth your weight in gold, because not only can you do the job, you're technically capable and creative, like hopefully people like hanging out with you, and you get work done better as a result.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really invaluable.
No, I was gonna pretty much echo what Rob said, but yeah, just that teamwork, the collaboration, and getting in early, working with someone. Remember, in games design, you're going to be working as a team, so you might have some really what you think are amazing ideas. You might not be able to get all of those ideas into the game that you are working on. So learning like how to work together, how to compromise, and make sure that actually you listen to the rest of the team and come together to actually form the idea that you're going to go forward with, rather than just going my idea, my way or no way sort of thing. Like, I think that's really important to learn how to get that balance right early on is a strong one as well. And then and then just with that as well, just kind of like then obviously you've got the other skills, but just that sort of like balance and making sure that you sort of are like you have your actual profession and what you actually want to do, but you're also going like how to work together, how to do everything like that. So I think they just go hand in hand.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
Definitely. I think also I just want to say what Rob said earlier about like just create anything. I cannot speak that highly enough. I mean, so many iconic game designers out there like Hideo Kojima and stuff, they've come from disciplines that aren't game design or aren't video games. A lot of games, very unique and successful games such as Animal Crossing, have come from ideas that are based outside of like video games, that they're about a feeling or, something else. And Animal Crossing was made because basically the dude who made it was homesick, so he missed his home. So it was about, he wanted to recreate that feeling in a video game. So really just as a game designer, obviously working together and things is great. And don't get bogged down by thinking you need to learn programming and all of these things. I hated mathematics. I'll tell you that. I'm a technical designer. You think I'd be great at math? Nah. But it's okay. You know, it's more about the logical thinking, and if you enjoy it, it will come naturally. So that's okay. But yeah, I think when people hear video games, they think they have to be like a mathematician and a really good programmer. That's not the case. It's really more about soft skills and communication, working together, and creative mindset, and the ability to always ask questions and gain feedback and be okay with failing, because you are going to fail a lot in this industry.
Of course. That's really interesting. I didn't know about the Animal Crossing thing. That's awesome. I think finding inspiration as well from all kinds of places that aren't just games is really cool as well. So that's awesome, you guys. Thank you so much. A bit of an odd one is my next question. We had Futures Day as part of the Careers Festival, so we're kind of thinking about how the industry might be changing or how it has changed. But I'd be really interested to find out if or kind of what has changed in the industry since you first started, and if you guys think that now is a good time to be a young person entering into the industry, and why. And I'll hand that to whoever. Maybe I'll go to Joanna if you've got anything to say about that.
I mean, I've been in the industry now for 7 years coming up. So I came from a completely different background outside of the industry. So it was really sort of from that perspective, it was kind of like coming in and going like, wow, this is really, really, really interesting place to work. I'd say the industry's grown in that time. I mean, us as a studio have grown. We've gone from sort of like just coming up to 300 people to 800 people that we are now in itself. And I think in general, it is a really exciting place to be. I think the perception of the industry is changing. I think in the past it's been a bit sort of like, oh, is it a viable career? Is it something that I can do? Is there actually a job for me in it? And I'd say yes to all of those, of course. Sort of, it's something that actually it is. There are so many. Hopefully, just like from what you saw at the beginning, when I was talking, sort of there are so many different areas. Even if you think, oh, that something isn't for me, there is something for you. You've just got to research it, find those niches, and find what your passion is. We always talk about passion in the industry, sort of like following your heart, following your passion, sort of thing. I think that bit is really important. So I think that's changed, and it is a really inclusive environment. And whether that's changed or not, I don't know. I think it's just becoming more like a familiar sort of thing within the industry that is really inclusive, and it is really sort of, we have fun as well. Like, we're not just we're working really, really hard, but we're also having an awful lot of fun while we're doing it. So yeah, they were the things that I think it's not so much that it's changed from that side, apart from getting bigger. It's just that it's becoming more well known that actually it's a brilliant place to be.
Awesome. That's so nice to hear. Thank you so much. Yasmin or Rob, has anything changed since you guys have started, or do you have any insight on that as well?
I mean, I've only been here for 4 years, but I will say in those 4 years, there's been more girls. Let's get more girls. I'll just say that. But it's nice to see. It's really nice to see, especially in like director roles and stuff like that. I'm starting to see more girls there and females, and yeah, it's nice.
Awesome. We're coming back, baby.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's sick. Shall I, Rob, did you have anything to say on that as well? Or
no, I'm not sure I'm qualified to. I don't think my industry experience is long enough to maybe comment on it. I think, I mean, something that CA is incredible at is looking after its employees. Joanna showed, 3 years in a row, best workplace. I think from the horror stories that I hear of, I think we're probably a bit before my time, but the general trend towards working too long, working lots of overtime, I think that is hopefully a thing of the past. Certainly at CA, we are so wonderfully treated and looked after by the company that it's a really good industry to work in. I think that is becoming the norm in the industry, is that employees are valued for their talent and for the time they put in, and it is a fair reward and a fair employment for the talent that you bring to the table. So I think that's been a really positive change.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think we're starting to hear a little bit less horror stories of companies doing like insane crunch and stuff like that. So that's a massively good sign. Thank you so much. If we're sort of talking about parents and young people, I've just got a very quick question. Are there any games out there that you guys would recommend, games that sort of help you make games? So I'm thinking like Mario Maker, or I think Dreams, although I don't have a lot of experience. Would you guys recommend those kind of games to parents or teachers or anybody who looks after children, as a kind of a way to inspire them into maybe a career in the industry, or at least get them interested in making games? Sorry, that was a very wordy question. That was a lot.
Kate, I'd say straight off the bat, and this is again more on those soft skills and less maybe directly on making a game, but for me Unravel 2 was the most beautiful experience that I've seen my two kids play together, and it's what I remember the best thing about games was couch co-op, sat together, they have to work as a team, teamwork, communication, sometimes get a bit upset with each other, and then just the storytelling, the music, like it was a really powerful emotional experience. And for me, that's why I love games, is when I receive that, like those powerful emotions from like the sense of embodiment and working through problems and succeeding in a task. So yeah, Unravel 2, that's my pick. I thought it was incredible.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I've not played it. I need to get into it.
Yeah, I need to play that game as well. But yeah, I think, Mario Maker, like you said, we were actually told in CA when I joined here, they were like, play Mario Maker. Because if you have any interest in level design, it's a really good game for that. I'd also say Minecraft, really, because it's kind of just, it's one big sandbox and you can do with it whatever you want. And, there's a lot of like logical thinking involved when you're building in Minecraft as well. So yeah, I think Minecraft's actually a really good game for just getting creative in a sandbox digital environment. It's great. Yeah, I think that's the main ones.
Awesome. The love for Minecraft never dies.
Yeah, no.
Love it. Nice. Joanna, is there anything that you could recommend?
I don't think I have any sort of like games specifically to add to that, but I just wanted to reflect back on when we did perhaps even back in December time, we were talking to the family database, and I just recommend that website for anyone who is sort of like looking at what games. There's check boxes on there and things like that as well, and one of them is kind of looking at ones which are more sort of game creation or the creative type. So I would I'd definitely go to that site if you have anything, and that's just good in general for like just looking at what games you think are age appropriate for the children that you've got. So
awesome. Yeah, the family games database was a surprisingly powerful tool that we looked at last time, and yeah, it's just awesome. So I definitely recommend anybody who's a parent or looks after children to really go check that out. That's awesome. So just before we wrap up, I think that's kind of all of the time that we've got questions for. All of the questions that we've got time for. I was just wondering, is there anything that we've not mentioned, or any sort of last tips that any of you have for any young people interested in making their love for games into a career? Anything that we've not touched on?
I think we've said it a few times, but just like go for it. It's not too early to start. Just get going. Pen, paper is all you need, or an umbrella, or anything sort of thing. Like, you don't need much to get started, and hopefully we've just given you some sort of like inspiration to make that step with your children.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much, and thank you for lending your awesome insight to this Careers Festival. I hope you had a good time doing it, and I hope that everybody at home had an amazing time watching it. Thank you so much. You guys are amazing. So for everybody watching, very quickly, next up, we're actually going to be conducting a game jam in just a few minutes with the folks at Game Dev London, and you'll be able to follow along with that as well. We're going to be doing it in just a few, sort of maybe 10 minutes, I think. So why not use the tips that you found out here to to help you on that. And it could be crazy. We might fail. We'll see what happens. But we would love to see you there. And once again, thank you so much, you guys. And a massive thank you to everybody at Creative Assembly for your wisdom. Thank you so much.